Ready. Wow. Oh, let me fix this a little bit. And yeah, so
I'm really glad you're doing that part and not me.
yeah, I know. It's like it's always something, right?
Mhm.
But mm, all right. I am just gonna move that in and then we are perfect.
Sweet.
So, welcome, Kelly Fadroski.
Thank you. I'm so
Been
happy we're
way
doing
too
this right
long.
now.
Yeah, it's been way too long since I've seen you.
I know. Remember Golden Gods? Remember red carpets?
Right,
When we used
right.
to do
That's how we
those?
met.
That's when we met in person. Yeah.
hmm
Oh,
Yeah, I
those days were so
remember
fun.
Jacoby from Papa Roach was flirting with you.
Oh my God. Well, no, we were trying to talk and like he was just like, I was like, I need to get away from you, dude. You're way too famous because people kept coming up and being like, can you take our picture? And he was so sweet. He's like, oh, do you mind? And I'm like, yeah, no problem. And then finally, because remember we were waiting for Axl Rose
Yeah. Oh
and
my
he was
God,
like
right?
so late. There was such a lag time and we're
Yeah.
standing there talking, but so many people were coming up. And finally I was like, I got to get away from you, dude. You're too famous. Like, I can't take another photo of you.
Yeah, and then he was like, "Oh, she was really cool." I'm like, you're
he was
married." Like,
he was so sweet. We were just having like such a good time. Like we were talking about like, oh, I wonder what Axel's gonna do when he comes out, because that was like that weird in between time. Like we were past Chinese democracy, but we weren't yet
right.
GNR reunion. Like him and Slash were still on the outs, and
Yeah.
but then Duff was there, and we're all like, oh, okay, like Duff's here, maybe they'll get back
Right.
together. But then he was so late, and he wore a fanny pack. Do you remember? He
Oh,
had a Fu Manchu and a
right.
fanny pack.
Oh my goodness. I
Yeah.
just remember my phone ran out of batteries, and
Oh.
I think it was Carrie, um, Carrie, who was, I forget what label she was working at the time, but I knew her from KSA, and I
Mhm.
stole her battery pack because I was running out
I
of batteries and I was waiting for James Michael.
oh
So,
those nights are such a blur. But I totally remember the Axl Rose thing, and I remember that Nicolas Cage was introducing him, and Nicolas Cage just stood up there like chirp, 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 waiting, and Axl didn't come out.
mm,
I mean, none of us were shocked, like
right,
eventually
right.
he did. Eventually he did come out and perform, and it was okay, but nothing to where he is now. Like we're like being with Slash and reuniting, like GNR is like next level, obviously. But that was just like that was the first time people were like, oh my God, they may actually reunite. Like,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
yeah,
Do you
that
miss
was a
red
fun night.
carpets? I do.
I do. I always have the most, well, because I don't do like traditional red carpets. Like my red carpets are like Halloween horror nights and like metal stuff, and just like the people are just always ready to just have a good time.
Yeah,
And it's such a vibe. Like it's different. Like I've done Grammy red carpet and stuff like that, and
yeah.
Grammy, and like I love the BET Awards red carpet. It is probably my favorite red carpet
Isn't it
because
chaos?
the talent is just so fired up for the night. Like, and you get like the big artists will just come over and just chill. Like the BET red carpet is so fun. But like it just reminds me of like the Golden Gods one, because those are the biggest artists in metal music.
Yeah.
They're selling out these ginormous shows in like South America and all over Europe, and they may not be as beloved in America, but everywhere else.
Right.
and and they're coming over to just like chat, and they're super nice and super
Yeah.
casual, and you're just like, oh my God, this is the best. Like there's no like nervous pretension, or like the PR people don't have to like hold up the like sign with the name, like you're just
I
like,
had to
oh
go at the Grammys for nothing more. They had three nominations, and I was
yeah.
holding up that sign. Oh,
Yeah. Well, I mean, in a situation like that, I mean, everyone at the Grammys is like, what's a rock band?
Right,
You know what I
exactly.
mean? So
My
yeah,
goodness.
that's kind of necessary.
Well, we're lucky that we have journalists like you that actually like us in the rock world. Because it's really like the whole Golden Gods thing. It was great because you knew you were
Yeah.
among your people,
Yes.
you know. All right. So I'm terrible because I'm friends with everybody I interview, so I never introduce them properly. So, Kelly, you are at the Orange County Register, and what's the name of the group?
Southern California News Group.
All
So
right.
yeah, so I mean, I went from covering Orange County and then parts of LA to now covering just everything from San Diego to, Santa Monica.
Ah, all
And
right.
even out in the desert, the Inland Empire. I was born out in San Bernardino County, so I, I get to cover a bit of my old hometown. But yeah, so basically like 5 counties in Southern California.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, it's so syndicated. It like pops up every time, multiple times. And I'm like,
I
which one isn't
know,
behind a paywall? You
I know.
know? But no, it's wonderful. And like I love reading your writing because you can tell that you love music.
I mean, I do, and I feel like, there are people that I meet in this business that I'm like, do you hate this? Like, what are you still doing here? Like,
Hmm.
I just do, and I still get very excited. I definitely, I mean, there's definitely things that I guess I'm 22 years in, 23 years in,
Wow.
that I'm like, you get a little like jaded a little bit, but I'm still so excited about things. When I hear, when a publicist comes to me and they're like, hey, listen to this, a publicist that knows me
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
knows,
Yeah.
they come to me and they're like, hey, check this out, listen to this, I mean, I think about, there's just so many artists that people have introduced me to lately that I'm like, oh, I mean, like I'm thinking about when you sent me the Tommy Lee music,
Yeah.
and I was so obsessed with like those 2 songs, and I kept listening to them over and over again because I couldn't believe that like those were the artists that Tommy found
Yeah.
to bring it on this record. Like they just, they're just floating out there in the world, and Tommy found them and brought them in to this music. And I was
Right.
obsessed with those 2 songs.
They're great. I mean, that whole record was great, and
Yeah.
it was not what was expected of him, and that's what I loved about it the most.
Yeah. I
You
mean,
know?
can you see on your end how many times I listen?
Yeah.
Is that, can you?
Well, not anymore, but
I
I
always
could
wonder
before.
that.
Yeah.
Oh,
Oh,
I have thought about that. Like, I wonder if the PR person is like, this girl's a psychopath. She's listened
no,
to this
because I
song
know
40
you.
times.
I know you, so it's different. Like you listened to it
Yeah.
probably around as much as I did.
Okay.
So, I mean, it's helpful to know those
Yeah.
things, but yeah, I don't have access to that anymore. But yeah, I read this story today, and I know a lot of bigger companies are buying up regional papers, and I know it was like
Yeah.
I think the guy that bought the LA Times or something
Mhm.
used to is bought the Village Voice, and
Yeah.
like I think local journalism it's disappearing, and it's sad because you know and love where you're from, and you
Yeah.
cover stuff from where you're from, like even if it was like a band that wasn't signed, if they were doing something big in your area, it would mean
Yeah.
something.
Yeah. I feel, when you start to get the companies that come in and buy up things, or, cause they may buy something and cause something else to shut down. Like I'm just thinking like here locally, we had, a weekly, OC Weekly, which was our competition.
They were
But
on the carpet with us that night.
yeah, and I loved the editor Nate, and we were buddies. As much as people tried to like pit us against each other, we're like, yeah, okay. But I those it had a place. It was a place where some of the lesser known local bands that are playing the very local shows could go and get exposure. I mean, for a long time I had a local music column, but that was still like one local band a week, and it was kind of
Yeah.
small. But as we've kind of branched out, into more places in Southern California, I've had to kind of look at covering some of the bigger things that satisfy the markets in all those counties. Um, so then some of those stories do get sacrificed, those
Yeah.
very local stories. Like I did have one this year. This kid, Taylor Fagans, he won the American Songwriter Award this year.
Ah.
And he's from Orange County, so he's
Oh.
from around here. He's currently living in New York, pursuing a career in Broadway. But
Oh, wow.
you see that story and you go, oh my God, like everyone needs to know about this guy.
Yeah.
He is like our hometown kid. He did local theater here. He did, but I can't always do those stories, which is where
Right.
that, like, an OC Weekly kind of took that and would run with that, and they did such a good job with covering the local music and stuff like that. And so for that, I'm just like, that's where the community gets kind of ripped off.
Yeah, I mean, when you covered law, I thought that was great because they were, consummate Orange County,
Yeah.
like,
Mm-hmm.
and that was terrific. I I also think a lot about I got a email today, and I want
Mm-hmm.
to know what you think of this.
Okay.
Got an email today saying send $2,500 and we'll do a story about your client in Forbes. And I was like, well, actually, they didn't say the amount. They said
Yeah.
pay us for it. And then I said, amount, you know? And they were like 2,500. I'm like, no thanks. And they were like, well,
Wow.
make us an offer. And I'm like, no. You know? I'm like, I just wanted to see how greedy you were. And then that was it.
Wow. Wow.
Well,
So,
because journalists need to make money. I understand that, but there's got to be a
I
better
wonder,
way.
are those freelancers that are pitching stuff? Oh, okay. Yeah. I mean, where I stand, I mean, I am a full-time employee with the company, and I have been for 16 years now.
Wow.
Um, 16 years in March.
Wow.
So I haven't I haven't really worked in the freelance world as much, but I mean, for me, I mean, that would be the absolute kiss of death for my career to,
Right.
to
Right.
pay to play, so to speak.
Yeah.
But like, I mean, I get, I do freelance things on the side, I absolutely do, like,
Amazing
ghostwriting.
bios.
Yeah, I do. I write bios, and like, as sometimes publicists are kind of like, what, I need someone to interview this artist to get these things out so I can use the material. And I pride myself in being a good extractor of information.
You are.
And and so I absolutely do that on the side as well. But yeah, I mean, I know it's tough, but I mean, that just sounds, it sounds like you're being held hostage. I
I
mean,
mean, yeah, there's
so,
more than one way to skin a cat. I mean, there's other ways
yeah.
into to get a piece in Forbes, but
Hmm.
it just I was like, oh, this is exemplary of what I keep seeing. And then the
Wow.
whole Submit Hub thing, like,
Mm.
you got to pay money to even get them to look at it. And
Yeah.
that's just, I
I
mean,
mean, you telling me this makes me feel like I'm doing it wrong.
right. I feel like I'm on the wrong side too.
What the heck?
Right, right. Like, but the thing is, like, I love good journalism. Like when
Yeah.
you wrote that Dirty Heads bio, that was
Uh-huh.
like the greatest story to me.
I it and that that comes from, for me, I mean, luckily, I mean, I live in Southern California. I went to college here. I moved here straight out of high school, went to college here, and just these people that I met in college, in coffee shops, in these little teeny tiny bars, before we were even, when we're getting the giant X's on our hands,
Yeah.
um have gone on to become these big, amazing artists. I mean, Dirty Heads I met at Gallagher's, this little bar in Huntington Beach, and like Avenged Sevenfold I met at Hoagie Barmichael's in Newport, where like their show, like there was like more people at the bar eating chicken strips than watching the band, like, and so I've had these relationships, professional relationships for a long time, and I follow their stories, and I also think like one of the things is that when I do an interview, I don't necessarily look at it like, well, here's my list of questions. It is a skill and it is hard to learn, and it didn't happen for me overnight, but listening, instead of worrying so much about what your next question is going to be or looking cool, I'm not afraid to look like a dork. I don't care. But because sometimes you just like, you'll be on a level with someone, you'll just fan out, like me and Tommy Lee, just like fanning out over these artists, and just finding that like common ground of things that we like, and then just continuing our conversation versus making it like a formal interview, which I know something like, next question, it's like, well, wait, they're not done talking. Like, did you hear
Right.
what they said?
Right. Yeah. And I mean, I get so wrapped up in listening to it, like on my end, that
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, we needed to be done 5 minutes ago. Oh, shoot. Like, I have Perry Farrell now, and he's doing interviews, and I get so wrapped up in the conversation
Yeah.
that I'm like, oh, shit, I'm late for the next thing,
Yeah.
you know?
And he's so great too. He's a good talker. So
Oh, yes, he is.
good luck
Yeah, no, and
with your
he's just,
timing.
I, I hate to term it this way, but he's adorable. You know what
He
I mean?
is.
Like
I feel like that's appropriate.
he was
He's
talking
adorable.
about FAO Schwartz today with a writer from New York. And I was like, "Oh my god, he's so cute." But this is the thing I love about what I
Yeah.
do, is that I get to see people that are skilled listeners, and people that understand that there's a story there, that
Yeah.
there's, like storytelling, there's nothing better than good storytelling, I think.
Yeah. Well,
Like you got
that's
that
always
whole concept for Dirty Heads, like that.
well, that's the thing. I call them nuggets, like my little nuggets of information. Like people just in conversation, normal people too, not famous people doing interviews, will drop so many tiny little nuggets when
Hmm.
they're talking. And if you happen to hear them and take that in and follow up on that, I mean, that's when you get the really good stuff. That's when you get to the heart of things, and to things that you're not going to see in Rolling Stone, Revolver, and every other magazine. You know what I mean? You're going to get something different, and that's always that's always the challenge. Because the artists sometimes, as they're doing a lot of interviews, they
Oh
tend to
yeah.
say, answer the same, which is not their fault. I mean, what are they supposed to do? Make something up for each time? Um,
I
but
did have
it's
an artist
just
that did that once, but yeah.
but I talked to a comedian once who told me that he tells writers things just to see if they end up on Wikipedia.
Oh, that's
Like
clever.
I won't say who it is, but he said one time he did an interview and said like he was deathly like afraid of sharks or whatever, and like had this whole conversation with this journalist about these sharks, and it ended up on Wikipedia that he had like a phobia of sharks, and he's like, I still get asked about it. I thought that was really funny. And he's like, I made that up just to see if it would end up on my Wikipedia page.
Oh my god, that's funny. Yeah, yeah, I
Yeah.
remember it was Law that was making up how they got their name,
Yeah.
and every answer was different.
I'm not shocked.
Yeah. Jacob was just messing around, and I was like, "You
Yeah.
can't do that yet." Like,
I mean, if you could get away with it, why not? I mean, that's the type of stuff
yeah.
that I find. I mean, because I come from like punk zines, I
Mhm.
come from that world. So that type of stuff makes me laugh really hard. I mean,
Yeah.
even though now I work for like a big professional newspaper, I still have that punk zine heart,
Yeah.
and I when I see that kind of stuff, or they kind of try to pull that stuff on me, I still love it. It just it
Yeah.
makes my heart happy.
Yeah, it does. It makes me laugh too. It's just like when you start in the industry, you take yourself a little too seriously,
Yeah.
and that was me for a very long time. I was very serious,
Mhm.
you know, and yeah, I was talking to Clown from Slipknot, and I
Uh-huh.
was telling him, you guys really taught me a lot about how to be a good publicist. Well, because they put me through the ringer partially.
I'm sure.
But But, you
Yeah, I
know,
was about to say, you poor lady.
but you know what? It wasn't all bad. It was,
Yeah,
you do learn a lot about people when you work with them. And,
yeah,
a lot of writers get mad at me when I listen to interviews. And like
yeah.
you're not like that. You don't care, right?
Nope.
Because I learn about my artists when they're interviewed by good interviewers.
Yeah,
Because I don't remember to ask them everything.
yeah. I mean, I would if I were you. I totally would.
Yeah, I mean, there's nothing more interesting to me.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I totally would listen in if I could.
Oh my God, I was on
Well, I
Clubhouse.
creep on people on red carpets.
Oh yeah. Oh, that's good.
I listen.
Well, then you know what the answer is, and you want to decide whether you're going to ask that same question.
Oh yeah. Oh, I try really hard to listen to what's to my left and to my right, because sometimes you bypass and come back, and
Yeah, yeah.
um so that way I'm not asking the same thing. So that way I'm not asking the same thing. And also, if they happen to drop one of those nuggets and the reporter doesn't pick up on
Mm-hmm.
it, then
Mm-hmm.
I can be like, hey, I overheard you say this. Like, what does that mean? Or what, and I that's me 100%.
Oh yeah, I
Because
mean that's what
I don't
makes it
want to ask the
interesting.
same question. Like, that would be that's a nightmare, because they're like, wait, I just hello.
Yeah, yeah. Now that's why people get tired of doing press too. I've had a
Yeah,
lot of bands be like, "I will not answer that question again," you
yeah,
know, and I can't help it.
yeah, I know.
But yeah. So w- because you look for those nuggets,
Mhm.
like to serve you better as a journalist, like if I have a band and they're from Southern California and they're doing really well and they're being played on the radio or whatever in LA, and like I still need to look for a story. Like
Yeah,
I still need to know what my story is, just because some people that don't do PR think success is a story in and of itself, and it's not.
yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, we get those pitches that are like, so and so has 100,000 streams, and I'm like,
Yeah.
so,
Right.
and it's, for me, it's more of, um, background. Did so and so win a national kazoo contest, or you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah,
just
yeah.
those sorts of things that you can like build upon, and I have discovered like those really weird fun facts about people that I'm like, oh my god, like you, like an artist, I'm like, you tried out for American Idol 20 times, like, things like that are just like, those are the things, like, that's what makes the story. It's not that um so and so has 100,000 streams and has a new EP out.
Thank you.
It's that underlying thing about them that makes them special,
Why
that,
you, as
yeah,
opposed to everyone else that have 100,000 streams,
yeah. Yeah,
right?
exactly. I mean, and I can think like there's a lot of artists, I mean, off the top of my head, so I'll just say like the band Dirty Honey. When I was first pitched Dirty Honey, I was like, okay, blah blah. And then I find out like this guy lived in his tiny little car, and he's a very tall man, lived in a very small car, like moving around different places in Los Angeles to like try to make it, and like
Oh,
showered in gyms and like all, and I'm like, okay, that's let's talk about that. Like, you
yeah.
know, let's talk about how you made that happen, because that's, there's a lot of people out there that, they suddenly have a little success, but they didn't really sacrifice to get there. I love those little stories of those sacrifices,
Yeah.
small or large, that, especially when you're pitching me a new artist, someone that's
Sure.
brand new, that has, been through something or done something, or
Yeah.
those are the things that like attract me. Like I said, giant man in a small oh, it was a Mini Cooper, and he's
Oh,
very tall, and so I'm like, how did you manage to live in that car and
I
just move around different places in Los Angeles, record your album, and shower at gym? Like, I mean, how did this happen? Like, that was the part where I was like, boom, you got me. I want to know.
yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And you know, I I struggle sometimes to find a story with a
Yeah.
client. Um, Fortunately now I have three clients, three great stories.
Yeah.
So I'm lucky, I'm blessed for that. But
Yeah.
there's some bands you're like, why you? What
Hmm.
about you is interesting? And it's
Yeah.
terrible because I hate being so mean, but like I'm just like, why do I give a
Yeah.
shit about you? You know?
Yeah. Well, and it's, with people too, as they evolve with their music and in the industry, those stories change, and that they become these news stories. And someone who is genuinely creative and is in the business for the right reasons, though you have stories, you'll
Yeah.
always have stories. You know what
Right.
I mean? You don't run out of stories. You don't have to go back to that same story from the first time, because this person is an evolving human and creative human and constantly putting out material and doing things that are outside of the box or beyond their scope or different from what they did before. I think that's kind of what sets apart like a true artist from the person that you pitch, or not you, but generally people
Yeah.
pitch that say, oh, so and so got 100,000 streams.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like there's a difference.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, I'm sometimes horrified by the things I hear from some journalists on how people pitch them. And
Mm-hmm.
like I'm in all these rooms on Clubhouse and I'm saying, listen, don't ask a journalist to do something on your artist. Know what the
Yeah,
something is. Know what you want.
yeah,
You know,
yeah,
because it's not your job to figure out the story. It's our job to figure out the story,
yeah,
you know? Like I think it's really important for me to read your articles, see what you're like by reading them and what might interest you, and then present you with like, I saw your interview with Dexter Holland and my artist has this in common with him, and you know what I mean? Like I
yeah,
just, like I feel like you need to do homework and not a lot of people do.
yeah. And I feel like that's a journalist thing too. Like I feel like we when we're doing interviews, we need to dig a little deeper. It can't just be surface. And I mean, when a publicist sends me, an electronic press kit that has, the bio, like the press release, like this is the most current thing happening with this artist. Here's some high res photos, here's some low res photos, here's a black and white, here's a color, here's a horizontal, here's a vertical. I'm like, I love you. Here's links to music, here's this. I'm like, great. And then, but I don't just take that and go, okay, this is all I'm going to look at.
Right.
I look at the artist's social media. I look at what they're doing. I mean, I just did an interview with a comedian earlier this week, and I follow her on social media, and was able to talk about the things she's done during the pandemic, and like things that she's been interested in. And I think that's important, rather than just being like, oh, so you have a special on the coming out,
Well,
tell me about that special.
that's the difference between journalism and blogging or just
Mm,
writing. You know what I mean?
yeah,
Like real journalism, there's more to it,
yeah,
and that's, I always get angry with bosses because they don't understand what I do other than call and get somebody to agree to do a story,
yeah.
because there's so much more work than that.
Hmm.
And every boss is like, well, don't you have a contact there? Can't you get X, Y, and Z? And I remember I came into a job and my boss was like, I did your job. I already got a piece in Billboard. So the piece in Billboard comes out. It has all the wrong info in it.
Oh
It
no.
was not curated at all. I
Yeah,
never would have chosen that particular writer to write that piece. But the thing is, I know that because I've been doing this 24 years.
yeah,
Yeah. But, not a
yeah.
lot of
It's hard.
people understand what I do. Not a lot of people understand what you do. And I feel like
Yeah,
if a publicist doesn't understand what you do, that's terrible.
yeah.
Yeah.
I'm in a very fortunate position. I mean, I've been in Southern California for it'll be 21 years in May. And a lot of the publicists, I mean, I was 17 when I got here, and a lot of the publicists that I met back then working for the punk scenes, I still work with today.
Yep.
And so they've literally known me since I was a child and we're still working together now. And, we have that rapport, and they know, like, I also have editors, like, not everything you may pitch me the greatest story. I may love it, but then I go to my editor, my editor's like, meh, I'm not feeling it, or not a right fit. And then, that squishes that.
Have you
But,
ever had a headline changed by your editor?
well, I mean,
Because I know that happens, but
I make suggestions. I mean, they're, sometimes when they go to print, since I work for a print product, the print product headline is often different from the online headline, for space and for aesthetic, because they design the pages and stuff like that. And there have been times where I've been like, ooh, but mostly, I mean, our editors that we have are really great, and they always hit me up or work with me or whatever, so I've never been like, oh my god. I mean, I do remember there was one time there was like a headline, and I mean, I can't remember what the headline said, but it was about Weird Al. And I was at the NAMM convention in Anaheim with Weird Al, and the headline that they wrote for print that I caught before it ran, it was alluding to the fact that, like, Weird Al hadn't played accordion, and I was like, it's literally what he's known for. You have to change that headline. Like, it was like kind of weird wording, and just didn't fit. And I was like, this makes it sound like Weird Al never played the accordion, and that would be a tragedy.
Yeah.
For many reasons. For me, for the article, and then Weird Al is a treasure, so he should get the recognition for his accordion. But that's something that I like caught, and I was like, oh my god, can you please? And we fixed it. But yeah, I mean, other than that, I've never really had any beef or like any crazy, like, we do communicate really well, thankfully.
Oh, that's great. I mean, just because I've I've had so many situations where I've had a band call me up and go, I don't like the title of this article. And I've been like, so, and they're like, get it changed. And I'm like, really? And I'd call the journalist and I'd go, did you make up this title? No, my editor did. All right, whatever. I mean, but half of my job for a while was getting stuff taken down.
Oh, yeah.
Or changed, and I hate that.
I don't get that request very often. I mean, sometimes there are things that
well, you don't do hatchet jobs.
So. Well, I mean, some things they're mostly style things. Like, we don't like if something's like a weird style, we typically go by AP style, and try to keep it like that. Or like if things are like all caps, uppercase, lowercase, whatever, I'm like, okay, I'm sorry, your band can't have uppercase, lowercase letters and expect a newspaper to abide by that. So, and there's a lot of that lately. There's a lot of artists coming out with the uppercase, lowercase, uppercase, or weird, just weird symbols.
Yeah.
I mean, Keisha doesn't get a $sign in our stories. You know what I mean? Like, so yeah, there's things like that that I just
get the umlauts though.
we do that, and we do the Motorhead ones, we do those. But yeah, just like I said, the uppercase, lowercase, weird, I'm just like, oh my god, this is, you're asking a lot. And I also have to consider, our audience is like, what is this, a typo? Like, so we want to kind of make it, kind of uniform type thing. So yeah, I do have to deal with that sometimes about style, or if it's an unknown artist and I say their first and last name, but they only go by their first name, in first reference, I'll say first and last name, because I'm like, nobody knows this person yet, until you're Madonna, like, you can't, you tell your Prince, until you're Beyonce, does anyone say Beyonce Knowles anymore? Like, I don't think so, until you're of that status, you're going to get last named.
Yeah. Oh, Patricia Bateman is saying in chat, I used to work for a small paper and I had to write on a word processor. Oh
Oh,
my, that's awesome. Um, yeah, I mean, hey, I went to a typing class in school. That's how old I am on
you know what, I
typewriters.
am too. You know what, and it is still today my like great, like, I feel like I was the last, it was 1998, and I feel like that was like the last generation of people that had to take typing classes. But I am so grateful because I don't even have to look at my keys. I like, I
Yep,
fly, I don't even have to think about it. So I'm very grateful for that skill.
me too.
And I notice a lot of people, like, I mean, like have older coworkers too and younger coworkers, and they do this, and I'm like, what are you
That's awful to do that. Yeah, I
doing?
totally get it.
I'm like, or they have to look at the keyboard. I don't have to look. I can just put my fingers there and go, and
Yeah,
I
yeah.
I appreciate that. I had to do my first job was at a like local magazine, and I had to do pay stub. So
Ooh,
I I had to like print the stuff after it was edited and then cut it with an X-Acto knife on a light table, and then so I got like the very last of that experience. I feel like
yeah.
I
Don't you
because
think
it
it
just
makes
didn't
you?
happen after 2000.
Don't you think it gives you an edge though? I think it does. I mean, I also, come from the days when publicists had expense accounts. And, you know,
Yeah.
we used to be able to
Oh,
take people out.
when
Um,
I talked to publicists about like the publicists that worked with like the bands in the 70s, like the big rock, like Kiss, Alice Cooper, and all
yeah.
that, I cannot believe the things that happened or the things that journalists got to do
Wow.
or shouldn't have been doing, or and then like you just hear these stories about like private jets flying everywhere and poker games on the jets on the flights, and I'm like,
Yeah.
what in the heck?
I was
I was
even
born in
doing
the
some of
wrong
that in the
time.
late 90s. I mean,
I
before
missed it
2000.
all.
I know. I came in on the tail end of it, and I think that's worse because I know what it was like.
Yeah. Oh.
Um, but but
Mhm.
yeah, I mean, what do you think that publicists can do? I mean, with the exception of doing their research,
Yeah.
um, to make it easier for you to say yes.
I mean, for me, it's like what we talked about, that like if you have a Southern California bend, only because this is where I'm, based and what I'm
Yeah.
covering and who I'm presenting information to. If
Hmm.
there's some sort of angle that's Southern California related, that's like, yeah, just give me that first. And then like I said, like I will always do my own research, but I so appreciate when the press releases come over and it's a release of the latest current, what's going on, the bio, who are these people,
Yeah.
here's some photos, here's some music, or here's a link to the movie or the TV show or whatever they're doing.
Yeah.
um I mean, it just, that part, then I can open that email, look at it, and go, okay, yeah, let me see if okay, maybe this is something I can do, and then I'll put a little star on it, and then come back to it, at the end of the week or the end of the day or whatever. Or me, like I'll shoot an email right away, like yes, 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 or like, hey, let me think about this, like
Yeah.
or I'll ask, hey, is there a Southern California show? Is there, I'm not afraid to like email and be like, hey, is this, is there something more here that maybe isn't right in front of me?
Yeah. What am I
But yeah, I
missing?
mean, if
Yeah.
those things are laid out right away, I mean, I get a lot of just like, here's my one sheet. And I'm like, well, is
That's
there,
just you
you know,
lazy.
and I'm like, well, okay, is there a show coming? Is there I mean, obviously right now, it's kind of hard, but I'm like, what's it's just a one sheet basically telling me who this person is, but doesn't tell me what that person is doing right now that makes it, why would
Yeah.
I want to write about this right now?
Right. 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 Right.
Why is this important? But like, I'm always like, and the people I work with, like you, and then like I said, some of the people I work with since I was a teenager, they know, and they send me the releases that just, they have everything, and I
Mm-hmm.
know how to get to their press sites, and they're easy to navigate, and I'm just like, oh my gosh, life is so much easier that way. And it makes it easier for me because I get so many emails to just look through it and go, okay, yeah, I'm going to come back to this one because it has all this info and I think I can do something here.
Yeah.
And I think that's the biggest thing from my end. I mean, back in the day, we used to get like the folder press kits,
Yeah.
with like the CD-ROM. And I always appreciated the people that just included all that kind of stuff. And like I don't even mind, like I even like to see like if there's the last time they came through town, the LA Times or the Orange County Register or LA Weekly or OC Weekly wrote blah blah blah. I don't even mind to see like some of that stuff. So I'd be like, oh,
Right.
okay, they've been around, and I can look stuff up and see. I don't
Yeah.
I like that too.
Remember the 8x10 glossy photos?
Oh my God, I have so many. So like I think like Warner Brothers, Atlantic, Epic, I have all the Interscope. I mean, I have like original like No Doubt ones, and
Wow.
I have Stone Temple Pilots. I have so many. I have like a
Oh,
fat stack somewhere just filled with those. And I'm like, and they're so cool. And a lot of them are taken by my friend Lisa Johnson, rock photographer
yeah.
extraordinaire. So it's kind of funny when I get to pull those out and I'm like, Lisa took this. Or
Totally. I mean, we used to, when I was at Roadrunner, we used to get a lot of bands submitting those to us, and we had a wall of shame, like all the worst photos that we got. I
oh
mean, I remember that
yeah.
like it was yesterday.
Some of them were so funny, like typical band pose, like the drummer's like with his sticks, like
Yeah. And on the
they're
train
like,
tracks, looking at you menacingly, you
someone
know.
has to look away.
Yeah.
Deep
I
thoughts.
wrote up rules for my bands, like about what they shouldn't do. Like,
That's
don't
so
put your
great.
instrument to a full band
uh
shoot. Like, look at
yeah.
the freaking camera, you
Hmm.
know? Just stuff like that because it was so cliche. Like the
Hmm.
brick wall or the train
Yeah.
tracks or
Or like the hand reaching out.
oh yeah. Oh, fisheye too, I don't like.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember at a photo shoot one time, an artist, photographers were working with an artist, and the artist went like this out towards the camera, and the publicist slapped his hand down, and he goes, "That will be the photo they use."
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, totally. Oh man,
And
well,
I laughed.
yeah, 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 yeah. Well, I appreciate your time so much.
Oh,
This has
no
been
problem.
so fun. Um, and I gotta get out to LA once this COVID thing is done. I'm gonna come out and
I,
visit.
I know. I mean, I don't want to brag because I know there's a lot of cold places right now. We're having really great weather here in Southern
Yeah,
California.
so I
um,
hear.
I mean, hopefully we could get back to doing the red carpet thing and all that
Oh,
sort of fun stuff.
yeah,
I know, I can't wait. I can't wait until Zoom interviews are a thing that I do every once in a while.
yeah, yeah, for sure. I mean, I'm on Zoom half of my day at least. You know,
Yeah. Well, this is my Zoom background for everybody.
it's
Is
great.
my
I have many
collection of
different ones. I have many different ones, but I have oh wait, I have this one and oh forget it. I can't show it now. I'll show it after. I have a
okay.
Ouija board one.
Oh,
I
nice.
have, I have like an Illuminati one that I used for Perry Farrell the first time I got on the phone with him, and he was like, "I love your
That's
background."
funny.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not sponsored by Rob Zombie, but
Rob Zombie is pretty darn cool. So,
oh, he's one of my favorites. That's why he gets to be right there.
yes, absolutely. Well, we will talk again soon. Thank you for
Yes.
tuning in. And thank you for your time and your wisdom.
Oh, love it. Thanks.
All right, I'll talk to you soon.